In the previous sections, we walked through how to conduct a manager briefing, refine user value, and refine business value for your opportunity. Next, you need to communicate your learnings and conclusions back to your project team, leadership team, and dependency teams impacted by the project. Communicating your insights back to each of these key stakeholders will help you verify that your insights are correct and build alignment going forward. If you continue to the next product development pillar without touching base with your stakeholders, misalignment and incorrect assumptions may start to have negative repercussions on your progress. These negative repercussions often manifest in three ways. The first is constant rework driven by other core team members, such as engineers and designers, because they don't fully understand the problem they're solving or why they're solving it. For instance, if you don't share your refined user value insights with your design team, they might come up with a wide variety of options that solve many different user problems. You'll then have to go through a few rounds of iteration to refine their mockups so they solve the specific underlying user problem you identified through user interviews. Instead, when you align with your design team up front about what the specific user problem is, they can create relevant mockups earlier. The second is late-stage blowups. If the leadership team had a vision for the project outcome based on the initial pre-validation assumptions in the manager briefing, they might be surprised when their expectations aren't met. For instance, after refining user and business value for a given opportunity, you might decide to prioritize some components of the feature over others. However, it's possible that what you've prioritized and deprioritized doesn't align with what your leadership team initially thought they wanted from this feature. This doesn't mean that your decision is wrong, but if you don't keep these stakeholders in the loop, then they may be shocked to find out that the developed feature isn't at all what they expected and derail the project before it can launch. If you present your evidence from user research and funnel analysis up front, you can avoid these late-stage blowups. Even if leadership still wants you to change directions, knowing this early on is much better than learning it after the team has spent months designing and developing the feature. The third risk is that dependency teams deprioritize your project in favor of others because they don't understand the value your project will bring to the user and the business. Consider a situation where you're working on a project that is seemingly small, such as removing a step from the conversion flow. This may seem like a small, low-priority initiative, so the head of engineering decides to deprioritize it for a big, multi-phased product launch. If you take the time to communicate to them why this is an important opportunity, that many potential users cite payment friction as their primary reason for not paying, and it's leading to 20% lower revenue, then they would understand the value this project could create and prioritize it appropriately. But how do you share your learnings with your key stakeholders to verify your insights are correct and build alignment? There are two types of meetings you can leverage to achieve this objective: product reviews and project updates. A product review is a meeting with your leadership to ensure the opportunity you've identified is correct and align with them on the path forward. During this meeting, you'll pressure test your learnings and refined hypotheses about the strategic fit, user value, and business value. You'll also use the product review to solicit your leaders' inputs, answer outstanding questions, and ultimately get their buy-in on the direction of the project. Project updates, on the other hand, should occur with your core team at key transition points in the product development cycle. Regular project updates ensure you and your team members share a common understanding of the project before starting on the next stage of product development. This ensures every member of your team has the necessary context to inform their work and decisions. At the end of feature opportunity validation, for example, it's important to connect with the design team to share the conclusions you've reached about strategic fit, user value, and business value. This will ensure the design team is aligned on the opportunity and ready to move forward efficiently. Similarly, once feature design is complete, it's important to align with engineering on the agreed-upon solution. Here you should share the overall goals of the project and what's in scope versus out of scope to help them make prioritization and resourcing decisions across all the projects that their team works on. We'll revisit this project update in more detail in the feature development stage. For the remainder of this section, we'll focus on product reviews, as these are critical touch points that enable you to move your project forward into feature design. The most successful product reviews are those in which the opportunity gets a clear green or red light, but product reviews can only be successful when you've put time and thought into preparing for them. As you approach the meeting, you can prepare by following these 3 steps, designed to ensure you make the most out of it. Identify the meeting audience and their priorities, define the meeting objectives, and structure the content of the meeting to align with the objectives. In this section, we'll dive deep into this 3-step process for product reviews. We'll focus on the first 2 steps in this lesson. Let's start with the first step, identifying your audience and understanding their priorities. Anand shares a good rule of thumb for thinking about your audience. You should be the most junior person in your product review. You want to keep this meeting as small as possible, so you should only invite the key leaders for the orgs that are directly impacted. With that in mind, product reviews in most organizations have 2 main audiences: product org leadership and dependency team leadership. Let's begin by defining what we mean by product org leadership. These are the decision makers for your project, including your direct manager and the leadership of your product organization or company, depending on its size and stage. In a smaller organization, a product review might include the founder, head of engineering, and head of product. But in a large organization like Meta, each product line, such as Ads, Marketplace, or Messenger, has its own leadership team. So a product review might include only the director of product and product lead for that specific product line. Next, we'll look at dependency team leadership. These are representatives from what we sometimes refer to as the informed group. This audience includes the functional leaders, meaning executives or directors, of any meaningfully impacted organizations within the company. An organization is considered meaningfully impacted when it's either a direct internal customer to the project you're working on, or their work will be indirectly affected by your project. An example of this might be that you're working on improving the sales conversion rate for a particular feature. This would make the sales team your direct internal customer, so you would likely need to invite the VP or director of sales to your product review. In another case, you might be working towards launching a new feature. That means the marketing and customer support teams will need to be prepared when your feature launches, so you should invite the leadership of both of these organizations. Now that we've established the audience, we can define the objectives for the product review. When meeting with product and dependency team leadership for a product review, you want to ensure that you leave the meeting confident in the path forward with your feature opportunity. So you need to do 3 things in the meeting: gather feedback on the opportunity, identify dependencies and constraints, and gain approval. Let's look at each of these in more depth. Your first objective is to gather feedback on the opportunity from your leadership team. It's important to do this now, before starting on design and development. The product review is leadership's chance to review your analysis, ensure it's correct, and align on a common understanding of the opportunity you're pursuing. By gathering their feedback and inputs, you mitigate the risk of misalignment, or worse, a late-stage blow-up in the future. You can focus on validating your conclusions about the 3 components of the feature opportunity: strategic fit, user value, and business value. For each component, get answers to any open questions. For instance, maybe you made some assumptions about business metrics while analyzing your funnel. Now's your chance to sense-check those assumptions with the experts and refine your business value hypotheses even further. There's an additional nuance to remember when soliciting feedback from the leadership of your dependency teams. Jay-Z says, you want to make sure your dependency team leaders are giving feedback in their area of expertise only. This helps avoid moving the conversation in the wrong direction. We'll discuss how to set expectations up front and help ensure the conversation stays focused in the next lesson. The second objective of a product review is to identify constraints and dependencies. It's important to account for these as early as possible because they directly affect the project and your ability to deliver a successful outcome. As product managers, we can't always see the whole organizational context we're operating in. This is why it's important to proactively ask product and dependency team leadership to flag any potential hurdles or challenges that they're aware of. The third and final objective of a product review is to gain approval on this project before leaving the meeting. Gaining approval from product leadership means that they agree with the problem you're solving, the expected outcomes of the project, and the built-in assumptions. For dependency team leaders, approval can mean a couple of different things. If they are indirectly affected, then they agree to support the project going forward. If they're a direct internal customer, it means they are bought into the outcomes of the project. If you gain approval, you also want to get a sign-off on the high-level timelines and action plan for the project. Then you can use the product review as a milestone to refer back to as your project progresses. Anand shares, the product review is a contract between you and the leadership team agreeing on the work to be done. When questions come up in the future, you refer back to the contract. We've now walked through the first two steps of preparing for a product review. Next up, we'll break down how to structure the content of your product review in order to set you up to achieve those objectives.